It must be admitted that following the recent developments surrounding Cambodia's confrontation with Thailand has stirred a strange mix of emotions, amusement, bitterness, and a certain sense of serves them right in the harsh logic of cause and effect. Not long ago, one could still see an atmosphere of arrogance and belligerence sweeping through Cambodian society. State-aligned media whipped up nationalist fervor, social networks overflowed with incendiary rhetoric, and crowds poured toward the border, mouths full of insults, hands clutching stones, brimming with confidence as if victory were already assured. Yet only a few days after real shells began to fall, that entire picture flipped almost instantly, from aggression to fear, from swagger to sobbing pleas, from provocation to desperate calls for peace. Seen clearly, this episode is a textbook tragic comedy of the mindset summed up by the saying, "Only when the coffin appears do people shed tears." It lays bare the hollow pride, the delusion of strength inflated by propaganda, and the bitter ending that awaits those who are weak but intoxicated with bravado, mistaking noise for power. Before the first artillery rounds thundered across the border, images flooded social media of Cambodian civilians massing near barbed wire fences, hurling abuse at Thai soldiers in the crudest language imaginable. These were not merely reckless youths. They included market vendors, motorcycle taxi drivers, and even Buddhist monks in saffron robes, figures meant to embody compassion and restraint. The sight of monks rolling up their sleeves, shouting curses, and gripping stones to throw across the border was deeply jarring, yet it perfectly captured the collective intoxication of chauvinism that had overwhelmed reason. Thai forces were regarded with open contempt. Many believed Thailand would never dare to fire, or even if it did, Cambodia's backer would immediately intervene. The taunting posture, "I'm standing right here, go ahead and shoot," reflected a level of arrogance bordering on delusion. What made this all the more astonishing was the reality. Cambodia remained a poor country with a fragile economy, an underdeveloped military, and weak institutions, yet it dared to provoke a regional power with one of Southeast Asia's strongest armed forces. Such recklessness was not accidental. The first reason lay in years of domestic political manipulation. Cambodian leaders seeking to maintain power while diverting attention from corruption and economic stagnation consistently sold the public grand narratives of Khmer nationalism. Ancient imperial glory from centuries past was resurrected and polished to dazzle the masses, fostering the illusion that Cambodia still occupied a central, commanding position in the region. When people are fed myths long enough, they begin to confuse memory with reality. The second and far more decisive factor was blind faith in a protector. Many Cambodians genuinely believed that China stood firmly behind them, ready to step in should conflict erupt. In this mindset, to challenge Cambodia was to challenge Beijing itself. Emboldened by this belief, they felt free to provoke, insult, and escalate, convinced they were shielded by an ironclad guarantee. That belief was reinforced by the omnipresence of Chinese influence throughout Cambodia, massive infrastructure projects, investments, and military hardware. During parades, shiny Chinese-made tanks and artillery rolled by to thunderous applause, cementing the impression that Cambodia's military had become formidable overnight. In the popular imagination, China was not merely a partner, but a savior. Add to this the simplistic logic that Thailand aligned with the United States while China rivaled Washington, and many assumed Beijing would seize the opportunity to use Cambodia as a pawn to strike at a U.S. ally. It sounded convincing until reality intervened. When Thailand finally lost patience and unleashed its air force and artillery, the illusion shattered instantly. Thai jets dominated the skies. Artillery strikes were precise, coordinated, and relentless. Cambodia, caught off guard, rushed to call Beijing for help. The response was painfully underwhelming, statements of deep concern and calls for restraint. There were no troops, no sanctions against Thailand, no decisive intervention of any kind. China, after all, is a pragmatic power. It invests to extract profit and leverage, not to fight wars on behalf of weaker partners. Thailand itself is a major economic partner. There was no incentive to jeopardize that relationship with a poorer, strategically expendable ally. The disparity in military capability soon became undeniable. Thailand's armed forces are professional, well-trained, and regularly exercise with the United States and its allies. Their command structures function efficiently. Their air and artillery units operate with precision. Cambodia's military, by contrast, suffers from nepotism, bloated leadership, and poor morale. Many generals wear rows of medals but lack real combat experience. Soldiers are underpaid, underfed, and inadequately trained. Once real fighting began, units collapsed quickly. Those who had thrown stones days earlier now dropped their weapons and fled for their lives. Border towns that once thrived on casinos and cross-border trade rapidly emptied as borders closed and prices soared. Fear replaced bravado almost overnight. People realized they were ants that had deliberately provoked an elephant, and when the elephant finally stepped down, there was no escape. The subsequent reversal in public behavior bordered on farce. The same crowds that had burned Thai flags days earlier now filled the streets carrying candles and flowers, holding placards written in Thai and English, pleading for peace. The transformation was instantaneous and complete. Pride evaporated in the face of survival. Watching those scenes, one could not help but feel a mix of pity and bitter irony. Diplomatically, Cambodia found itself isolated. Officials who once thundered with threats fell silent. Calls for unconditional talks and concessions poured out. ASEAN grew weary of the disruption. Western nations remained indifferent. China stayed aloof. Cambodia discovered, too late, the meaning of the proverb, "Better a nearby neighbor than a distant brother." Having quarreled with nearly every neighbor, there was no one left to rely on. The episode also reopened old wounds in Cambodia's relationship with Vietnam. When the Khmer Rouge drove Cambodia to the brink of annihilation, it was Vietnamese soldiers who sacrificed their lives to save an entire nation. Yet gratitude was later replaced by distortion, resentment, and hostility, fueled by external manipulation. And now, in crisis once again, some quietly looked around for help. The sense of grim satisfaction felt by many Vietnamese observers was not cruelty, but the recognition of karma at work. The lesson is painfully clear. A weak nation intoxicated by illusions of strength, dependent on external patrons, and hostile towards its neighbors will eventually pay a heavy price. Cambodia will likely need decades to recover from the damage, material and psychological, inflicted by this miscalculation. Whether it truly learns from this ordeal or forgets when the pain fades remains to be seen. But for now, the message could not be clearer. Abandon delusions of grandeur, temper the noise, and learn to coexist with neighbors. When darkness falls and crises strike, it is those neighbors, not distant brothers, who determine whether you stand or fall. Thank you for watching this story. If you found it meaningful, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. And now it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with Societal Stories.